So it begins. Any words before I start?
Prepare yourself?
Prepare
It's
myself?
Like a good page turner. Like, if I didn't have lifing, I definitely would have finished this book in like 2 days.
Okay. Well, we will discuss things when I begin. I will try to have no expectations going in.
I'm so excited.
All right. So I finished the book. Thoughts. Now, I originally heard about this book and thought it sounded interesting, told you about it, didn't read it, bought it for you, and then you finally read it. So what are your overall feelings about the book that you then gave to me to read?
I think my words were like, oh my gosh, you have to read this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had a couple coworkers who had read it too, right?
Yeah, we were reading it together. So that in itself, I think was like the thing, you know?
To preface, I have never, I don't think, ever read a romantasy book before. So I have seen reviews of this all over and never watched any of them because I had a feeling you were going to read this and I was hoping to be able to do this video with you.
We would call it a romantasy?
That's what the series, the genre theme is romantasy, romantic fantasy.
Okay, yeah.
That's what it's known for. And there's many in that realm. You've read what was the Court of Thorns and Roses? That's a romantasy. Right? So this is in that vein. So you are way more read in romantasy than I am.
Are we surprised?
No. Now, which one of us has read more fantasy? Yeah. So
You,
overall, how do you feel about this book?
Honestly, I actually very much loved the book. I think it kept me on the edge of my seat in many ways. And then there were also things where I was just like, yeah, that's a woman's brain. Those are her thoughts, which we would definitely get into.
That was something very interesting that I had to wrap my head around because I have read many books by women authors that are amazing authors, amazing writers, but I don't think I've ever read one that quite described a woman's thought process and brain like this.
Yes.
And it was interesting. We'll get into that when we talk about Violet and all of that. So just so you know, spoilers. This will be full of spoilers. I think this has been out for like 4 or 5 years, so I think we're safe. But just so you know, spoilers. Okay.
Spoilers.
So to start off, this whole world, even forget the name of this world of just the continent, right? We're in Navarre. We're at the War College of I think we called it Basgayath. I think we said it would be called
Really?
Basgayath.
Oh, I call it Bazageth. But I don't get it.
Basgayath. I don't know. Who knows pronunciation and all that. So in this continent, this world, how'd you feel about just entering into this world?
I mean, I think it was very different because we only see a small portion of what the world actually is. So I like the main focus of the whole entire book is going to be in the Battle College, or is what I mostly just called it, or War College. That's what they called it in the book. And so with everything that's taking place, you get snippets of like the, what is it? What she really wanted to be was like a scribe. You get like a little bit snippet of that. You get a little bit snippet of the healers, things like that. And so you're seeing like this
border forts. You're seeing a little
right. You're
bit around.
seeing a little bit around it all, but most of it takes place at the War College. Where in my mind, it's like a mixture between. I know it sounds so bad, like Harry Potter and Hunger Games.
I would throw some Twilight in there as well.
No, I mean the look of the school.
The look of the school, okay.
Yes, like Hunger Games, Survival of the Fittest, but them going to all these different classes and stuff like that.
With the castle, with everything.
Yes, their uniforms and stuff like that. I would definitely go. That would be more of like Harry Potter past like book 4 or 5, not like kid Harry Potter, like the teenage when things are about to like.
But the fact that they're in their 20s. So that you're able to enter into this young adult world, which romantasy would be a little weird if this was like teenagers with all the stuff. Yeah. I don't have any background in this genre, just saying. So it was interesting to see them in their 20s, even though they did sometimes act like spoiled teenagers. But anyways.
Well, I mean, they're still young. They're still in that, their frontal cortex hasn't fully developed.
And all that, 25, something like that.
So,
but anyways, that whole world, that's a great analogy, I think, of this war college. In fact, there is a series of genre books that are following like education, magic education, development, all that. So it's kind of a genre in of itself, which is really cool. I almost wish they showed classes more. Like maybe some of the stuff like the background, the fighting scenes, rather than just, it felt like we just saw
snippets.
Some of the war strategy rooms, some of the training, maybe a little bit of the magic moments, and then it kind of moved on. So it would be interesting in future books, and we'll talk about that later, what some more classes and what more of the world is. But I feel like she did a great job of piquing people's interest with this world.
Sure. I mean, even the whole thing of how they have to get into.
What was it, the parapet they have to walk across?
Which in my mind is like a mixture between like a balance beam and like a skyline.
Like a slack line?
Yeah, like a slack line. There we go.
I think they're planning on they're in works of making this into a series right now. HBO, I think, is in works to make this.
It's not.
Yeah, not Amazon. Wheel of Time just got. Yeah, we won't talk about that. But anyways, I'm really curious to see how they do that. And the fact that you see Violet from the very beginning, how she has a heart for others. That's her scribe. She wasn't trained to be selfish and brutal.
No.
She's wanting to help others. And you see that from the very beginning.
Yes. Or also the wanting to know. You know what I mean? I feel like if she was just part of the war college from the very beginning, it's like this is the facts, this is what you're doing, this is your assignment, and you just go with it. But like as a scribe, she's taught to think outside the box and elaborate, and her mind is more of a creative outlet for that because of how she grew up. Plus she also grew up more with her dad, with who definitely had more of that, like she the little snippets back to where she's like remembering her childhood with her father and like things that he has taught her, I think also helped shift her narrative as far as like she's not going in the same as say her sister or her best friend who Caleb doesn't like. It's completely different, and so I think seeing that too allows you to have a different mindset of like what she's going in and how she's being forced to go in. It's not on her own, accord,
This is a nation that's been at war for centuries.
Yeah, but it was also something she was never trained to do. So she had 6 months of training.
Yeah, she was forced to.
And so that was kind of crazy to see that. I mean, even like thinking about like her dynamic with her family.
Yeah, which we'll get to that in a second. What I really loved about in terms of the themes of this book as well is you're taking a nation that's been at war and think, what would a nation at war for that long, what would it look like?
Yeah. What
in
would
terms
the main
of the draft,
focus?
in terms of the resource, in terms of the support, in terms of
Yeah.
the overall information, narrative, government, everything. It kind of touches on that, which I think she really fleshed it out, and in a really interesting way. I really love like political fantasy where it gets into all the background nitty gritty of the deals and stuff. And so, anyways, one of those things. So, dragons and magic tattoos. How do we feel about those?
I don't call them magic tattoos or the relics.
The relics, yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
Well, the relics, wasn't that the one that was the legacy tattoos on the children of the rebels?
Okay, so those were.
But then there was the like different tattoos.
The signets.
The signets. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Sigils, signets, something like that.
I thought it was signets because it signified.
Sigil, signet. I'll have it right here. What it is. Either way, you're probably right.
I'm probably not. But I thought those were so cool. I liked when you called them dragon tattoos. I didn't really see them that way. I seen them more as something that was like living, breathing on their skin. So it was like something that was like, in my mind, it was something that was more like emotion, like a motion thing where it wasn't like a solidified like dragon tattoo, but it would be something
so it's
that
like
was
magic, like magic ink that's like flowing.
Yeah, that had like a breath to it.
Yeah, that's something that is common in a lot of fantasy tattoos. Powers grow. You even see it in Moana with Maui's tattoos, right?
Oh, that's true.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that with the shimmer and everything.
Yeah.
But then
well,
the fact
in my mind, that's how she described it.
She
Especially
did, yeah.
the one on Zayden.
Yeah. Well, she went into detail about Zayden.
Hello.
As your husband, I don't know how I feel about that, but so
it's my imagination, okay.
But it was interesting to me the variety of dragons and the way in which they actually were chosen, right? Because you hear a lot of like, there's books like there's a series of historical dragon alternative history where they have like eggs hatch and immediately they're bonded and stuff. It's the Temeraire series. It's a really interesting one. But dragons are hatched and they're immediately bonded to somebody. It's interesting in this case where you have some of these dragons that have been through multiple riders who died, and they are, when they do that walk after doing the gauntlet, which that was cool. That gauntlet thing was that was really cool. Yeah, that was amazing. Kind of like reminded me of Maze Runner a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Maze Runner, the movie?
We did together.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been married for 7 years, so you know. But anyways, the way in which the dragons chose, and that was really cool. I think how Taryn, whatever the long name, just Taryn, her grouchy dragon mentor.
I thought he was an old man. Like, he didn't seem grouchy. He just seemed old. You know.
So what's his voice for you? Because I think voices me. So I think of him being he's just this very stoic, just this deep rumbling voice that just kind of talks and rumbles, and he's grouchy and angry because he has this. But so for you, he
was more sarcastic than anything.
So he's like, "Will you just stay in your seat already?" So I think old man. That's
no. It's like mark, 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 like that, but like very sarcastic with it.
Like the 50 million times he had to hold her in the
right.
Which for come on, for a society that's had dragons this long, how did they not have saddles?
Well, you have to think about the society. It's based on strength.
Yeah.
So in their mind, they're never going to have a rider like her. Mm-hmm. So again, she was never, from the beginning, from birth, she was never trained to be a rider.
The smallest on the biggest dragon.
Yeah. So I mean, if you looked at like the thought process, like what her sister looked like, in my mind, it was like Xena Warrior Princess. 6'9", like 5'8", 5'9", very muscular. For that, she'd be able to ride the dragon with no problem. When you're looking at Violet, she's probably more like 5'5", 5'6", very slender. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so with that,
frail from her medical stuff,
pale. There's just like the way that she's described. She's not this like.
Probably paler than me.
I'm sure she is, because she had never really seen sunlight.
Scribes, historians.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So, like, with that, like, too, she would never, her body would never get like that super soon. So, and for him to be, he was the biggest dragon. So, again, you have the smallest rider on the biggest dragon. Yeah. That's not going to work out in her favor, regardless of how many squats and leg presses and...
Yeah,
chokehold she tries to do with her thighs.
Right. Anyways, but the way in which it was really cool, and then the society and culture and how it was surrounding the dragons, and then the different personalities of the dragons, the way they're chosen, the no cussing, but the SOBs that are in there, right? That one guy who was just from the beginning was just a psychopath, just saying, "Oh, I'm going to kill you." Yeah. That was a little over the top, I think, to have immediately, "I'm just going to kill you," and then seeking out all the dragons.
I don't think so. Honestly, that's like douchebag alpha. Like, you know what I mean?
Try hard.
Yeah. It's like, from the very beginning, I'm going to do my fair amount so everybody knows not to mess with me. And I'm just going to take the weaklings out.
I guess I like my villains to be a little more complicated. Like, there's a little more backstory in terms of you find out the fact that...
Well, I don't think he was a villain. I think he was just a character. Don't get me wrong, he was a villain or a mean person, but when we're thinking through this book, who's the actual villain?
Her best friend. Anyways, okay. So,
just with all those, her mother, but continue.
That's the whole comment. Yeah. So, in thinking about characters, we talked about Violet or violence a lot. That you're.
You want to talk about it? Or you want to bring it up later?
No, because we're on Violet. It just felt too cliche. Oh, hello, violence. It's like it felt overly cliche to me. Just how Xaden was constantly okay, violence, but. We talked about it a little bit because as we were reading it, you had already read it, and so I was gritting my teeth at certain things. You were laughing at me through it. But what did you think about Violet in terms of this frail woman who's forced into it, and you see her brain being her thought process is so different, and that makes her fully capable? I feel like she definitely deserves the recognition for the way her brain works. Yeah. Could she become as powerful as... She ended up being the whole lightning wielder and all that. It felt almost like there was too much of a... Not Mary Sue. Mary Sue is a... I don't know if you've ever heard of Mary Sue. It's a character who is powerful for no reason, with like no backstory, no reason. It's just immediately I was weak, all of a sudden now I'm strong. I feel like she's not a Mary Sue for sure.
No,
it did feel like there were leaps to all of a sudden be, oh, she has an amazing brain, all these things, and all of a sudden, oh, now she's the most powerful wielder with lightning. It just felt like it was a lot.
I don't think she was the most powerful wielder. I think she had a very powerful power, whatever.
Magic, sigil, whatever.
But I think it has more to do with who she is versus this whole Mary Sue thing, because you see it even from the very beginning of like her thought process and stuff like that. It is very different. But even like the snippets of her going back into like being a scribe, like you could also tell that she was very intelligent.
Yeah.
And like one of them said like your biggest power is your brain more than anything. And I think that's the thing, like as someone who is very smart and very capable of a lot of like creative and imaginative things to do within your brain, it's going to make you know how to use your strengths to the best, that you're able to. And I think for her, that's definitely what you see. You definitely see that she is very strong, very capable, just based off of her mind and the way that she thinks outside of the box. I mean, she was creatively poisoning people for her matches, which was something super cool. But one thing that you can see is like she was never a quitter from the very beginning. Like she
had to struggle through with her medical condition.
Right. But it was even that like where her best friend Dane was like, let's get you out of here. And she's like, no, I'm going to stay. Like, one, because she felt like her mom would drag her back. But two, like it was also something where I felt like she wanted to prove to herself that she could do it. And that was definitely something that I feel like the fighter, she was more of a fight, not flight type of person. Whether or not she knew she was strong enough. She knew that like, I probably can't do this, but to the best of my capabilities, I'm going to try. And so I think that shows up more than her being this Mary Sue. Or whatever you call it.
No, I agree. Yeah, she wasn't fully. I do feel like it was a lot, like it would be more interesting if she built into it, but there's 2 more books to go in terms of what more she can build into.
Absolutely.
And I think she has enough of that background and development along the way. Speaking of poisoning and all that, I really like the inclusion of her brother's journal that her sister left for her as a way of connecting to family in a way, so that you immediately start off with her sister giving her that her armor, her dragon armor that was shrunk down, and then surviving that way.
Sorry.
Yes, her friend who could enlarge things
or shrink things.
Yes, romanticy. And so the inclusion of that, to be able to kind of know her family outside of her mother, that you kind of see these relationships play out through that. And then even through the book, I love the inclusion of the historical notes from the different
at the beginning of each chapter.
The beginning of each chapter, that
really
kind of feeds a little bit into what the chapter's about. That's kind of common in books to have either a history or a diary or something that leads in. And this one was really cool because it gave so many little about the dragons, about the war, about the war college, the past, all that. And hopefully that's something that continues forward in the next ones. Cool. So Violence, good character.
I loved it. I loved her. You hated her little monologue thought processes, but honestly it was such a woman. But here's also the other thing. Like, you know how they say like women talk like 2,000 words more than a man? Our brains do the same thing. Like, guys can literally think about nothing, but our brains are constantly going. So the way that her brain is working and the way that she's thinking, and it's all, connected to her feelings and, what's happening, what's not happening. This whole idea of, like, that's just how a woman's brain works. Like, I think the author did a really great job.
So you're saying a woman can have somebody in their life that they have every reason to hate, but be immediately attracted to and drawn to, and be like, oh my gosh, no, I shouldn't be, but oh, this guy. Guys' brains. Like we said, this is a book that really explains it. And I think that's why this is so popular as a book.
Right. But you also have to realize at the beginning, she did not like immediately be drawn to this man in a way where she was like, you can have like an enemy. She was
immediately captivated by him in terms of look at his dark eyes.
Beautiful. There's evil people that are beautiful. That's a thing.
Again, as your husband.
I'm not naming names. I'm just saying in general there are definitely things. They're also like that whole like bad boy, you know, thing. Yeah. And it's not like, oh, he's going to kill me. Woe with me. You know, that was not her mindset. Because you could even tell like she was always on the defensive even around him because she knew that she couldn't fully trust him until she felt like she could.
Yeah. And then that backfires, and then then it comes full circle, which there's reasons for that. We can talk through the ending real quick. So Violet, what about her mom and her
I don't like her mom
stuff? No, her mom is a stuck
beep, beep, beep.
I hope the future books go into a little bit more of the backstory because
she just seems so militant and not, there was no like motherly enduring, and I don't know if that was just more of like her relationship with Violet or if that's what she was like. She left it up
to her husband to be the nurturing one. Which that happens in relationships and families all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. But when the father dies,
you leave that child, like, it's like SOL for that child. And it felt very much was like, well, since your dad's dead, you're just going to go do this now and get out of my hair. Maybe you'll die. Maybe
even later when she gets chosen, she's immediately more suspicious about, you got 2 dragons and all this, and I hear you can't hold on and all that. Which that was a whole thing. Aderna, whatever her name was, the little dragon was really sweet.
So cute, the little golden dragon
that she saved. That was a really cool. The feather tail that turned it. Anyways, that'll be looking forward to seeing more of that later. I wonder if the sigil, the tattoo grows when the dragon grows. That'll be interesting. Anyways, side note. So mother, we'll see where it goes. Sister, love her.
Love her.
Brother,
R.I.P.
Well, most likely you've read this, but anyways, family is all great. Xaden. Now, what I thought was really cool going into this was the idea of these children who are the legacy children who were the descendants of these rebels. That through the book, this is what I really loved about the ending of this, is because it does shift everything to where it'd be like, wow, this empire is the one that has sunk in on itself and isn't afraid of the outside even admitting to the truth of what is going on, and is happy to watch every region outside of this kingdom burn beyond the dragon wards as long as we're safe. But yeah, it was cool to see that, and especially Xaden being the oldest, taking on so much responsibility.
So crazy.
Where you see how much he cares and how sneaky they are with sneaking out at night and supporting the younger ones. And she initially has that mistrust of him, and then she sees how much he cares for others. They initially want to kill her, but then they can't kill her without hurting him and his dragon and all that.
Yeah,
so it was really cool
Yeah.
how interconnected those are, and immediately just accepted her. Much better friend group than her old friend group, although she had some good friends that she made along the way, but definitely Imogen and all those other characters coming in, including my favorite character of the entire series, who is not spoiled at all in slight ways about... Well, here I am reading about Liam being like this caring older brother guardian who she comes to really like as a friend, as like a guardian. And I'm like, oh, this is my favorite. And she's like, oh yeah, it is mine too.
I was like, yeah, it's my favorite.
And then the ending with how the dragon died and he died and the whole emotion of that.
I cried.
I
cried. I was on the plane reading that part. Mm-hmm. I was on the plane around 100 people reading that part. It was trying so hard not to bawl my eyes out like a baby. Reading that whole part of him, like, one, helping her for like the last time after everything that had just happened. And, two, it was just like, it was it broke my heart because I was just like, I was not ready for it. I wasn't ready for it. I thought they were going to survive.
I mean, somebody had to. For something that crazy, somebody had to die, and it wasn't going to be Xaden. Wasn't going to be Imogen, I don't think.
Imogen, I don't think was that big enough character. The whole like aspect of like Liam, him talking about his sister. There was just like he was a big brother, very stable, reliable, handsome. I just had to throw that in there. Guy that like.
So do you see more of Xaden or more of Liam? And me, is that why you liked him?
And I just really I feel like I really connected with him overall because he just had you're very much more of a Liam because of the true north. Xaden, he was a little sneaky, but I feel like
dark, broody.
The loyalty to a fault in some ways with Liam was very much like you, and I just feel like you would like probably be such a protector in that type of way, which is probably also why I was just like. Because it was just so sad. I mean, even she broke it. You know, everybody broke. It was so sad. But
Liam, R.I.P. Liam.
I know.
Especially because that all came right after the betrayal of her best friend Dane, who from the very beginning,
was a jerk.
I just couldn't stand how controlling he was. He's only a year older than her, and I guess growing up, if she has been so unhealthy and delicate from her condition and fragile and scholar, and now she's forced into this.
What was her real condition other than like her just not fully being?
It was like a bone. It was like a ligament, a bone weakness.
Very thin.
It was all about like her joints. I think it was like she was very tender joints, and so she could easily pop out of socket and all these different things.
Yeah, she
needed
more calcium.
I don't know, but either way, from the beginning, he was just so controlling. In fact, how many of the Hunger Games movies or books? You haven't read the books. Have you watched any of the movies? Mm-hmm. So, do you remember Gale, who was Katniss's like best friend who Dane is very much Gale to me.
That's what I was saying.
In the end of Hunger Games, how Gale was so protective, overbearing, his whole thing. Dane just was almost possessive.
Very possessive.
Of her.
She's mine.
To the point where he's like, it's like he runs up to her and just like grabs her face and all that. And later you find out that he was reading her thoughts for that. And then I thought it was hilarious how like she was so drawn to him, and then they kiss, and she's like, no.
It was before that too.
Yeah.
It was his whole like you have to stick to the rules and everything like that. Like talk about true north. That man was true rules, and sometimes not all rules and processes and stuff like that are going to be the best benefit. But
after the choosing thing, where Xaden was like, I think she asked the question of, if you were there watching and they were going to kill me, would you have stepped in?
Yeah.
And he said no, but she knows Xaden would have if Terran hadn't just been arriving, Sigthil, whatever his dragon's name, and then Terran came in. Yeah, Dane was just a piece of work.
He was just, and it was just like very irritating to watch that man, like always like the rules, the policy, this, that, and it's like to the detriment of your best friend that you said you're in love with.
In Wheel of Time, you haven't seen that in the season. In the books, there's a character named Galad who is very much everything has to be right. Everything's black and white. You have to follow the right, even to the detriment of your family. Very much Dane. And I'm wondering. My gut says that eventually Dane will have to have a reckoning of some sort, where he's going to have to learn to bend, or he's gonna die because he's just going to be so black and white and fight, and maybe she has to kill him eventually. I don't know. Maybe that's a future thing. Yeah. Who knows? We don't know. I haven't. Yeah, who knows? We haven't read further.
No.
And then all the friends along the way.
I loved them. I love the dynamics of as they're training and getting ready for the claiming of the dragon.
The gauntlet.
Is what I'm calling it. Yeah, it's like that dynamic of people seeing like, oh, she actually has the strength. Oh, this or that. But like her friend from the very beginning starts with like a T or something. I think.
Here an R.
No, maybe.
The one that she helped across the parapet.
Yeah. What was that girl's name?
Rhiannon?
Yes.
Rhiannon. We'll go with
Rhiannon is what I called her. Because it reminded me of Rihanna. But I really liked their dynamic. Stop it. I really liked their dynamic too, because one, like, also you see like her friends are super talented, very strong, very capable, and that's like you can see all of their talents and all of their strengths and how they all marry together really well. Was something really cool to see, as they, were like doing that one challenge where they stole the map.
Yeah.
Like you're just seeing all of these different things like really come to play, which was like really cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I was always Team Xaden from the very beginning. I was never a Team Dane. And I really liked him because
you knew this was an enemies to lovers situation.
And I love a good enemies to lover situation. I know that has nothing to do with us, but I just love it because there's always just like a little angst, I just love that, and so that's definitely what it was. At least getting edge, to those scenes, as Caleb called them.
The scenes, yes. Speaking of the scenes, those were interesting.
Burning trees.
Burning trees and shattered windows and crushed wardrobes. They were interesting, I will say. We'll go into details.
Don't need to.
Yeah.
They were interesting.
Nothing new. But you can definitely see all the way through. I knew that they were coming at some point because it's known for having some scenes, and I thought along the way that it was just like some of the moments and things thought. I was like, oh, is that it? And no, then they happened. It was like all the internal thoughts and the talking to each other telepathically.
Oh my gosh, I loved that. I mean, not during, but like when she realized that he could like not necessarily hear her thoughts, but talk to her. That was like, oh, it'd be kind of interesting. Like if that was a thing, like once you're married to like your person, then that would be a thing.
Like what if it was like through rings? There's a specific bond like that signifies your marriage, and it's through the rings that you wear.
I thought about something else, but I think once you have your first child, I'm just kidding. But that would be super interesting if that was something that like actually was a thing, because I feel like I'd mess with you so much. Oh my Lord! Could you imagine you at work and we'd just be like, bah! I just like
I'd be like right in the middle, and you'd be like, boo!
Yeah, I know. He'd be like, oh. It's just, I think it would just be so funny because I feel like in that aspect I'm way more like Zayden when it comes.
Or I would mess with you when you're on a work call.
Yeah, but you would remember what my work calls are, so it would be one of those things where I think I would be more of the messer than you would be.
And I mean, everyone cheeky.
Yeah, but then I would
just says you're a cheeky little bugger.
Cheeky little bugger. Yeah, I know.
But it was definitely interesting. I can see where people are drawn to that. People
are women.
Women, I would say it was
really interesting. Yeah,
it was interesting. I will say that it was well written too. I have had scenes appear in books before. They're just like, oh, that's awkward and skip past, and that felt very organic.
Yeah.
So
it was very lovely.
It was. They were something. But the overall plot and the ending. Did you see her brother?
I did not see that coming. Did you?
Okay. This is where. Rebecca Yarros, she did an amazing job because it's a trope and a cliche in fantasy and all books that somebody, if you don't see them die, if you don't see their lifeless body be buried or burned, that are they really dead?
Right.
And so that's happened in so many books.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, this person's gone. Oh, here they are. Shocker, spoiler twist of the century.
They fell off of a cliff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But in this case, the fact that it was said from the beginning he was dead. You see his journal. People have talked about him dying. The fact that Taryn's writer tried to save him, and it appears like he failed, but actually it sounds like he succeeded, but died in the process. That's why Taryn does have a connection now with Violet. That I think is part of it.
I think so.
And then all of a sudden he's back. I'm really interested to see his relationship, especially if he's the thing that gets the mother to break and loosen up a little bit. Crack. Right? That's like what's going to happen to the mom when she's all this grief. Son died, husband died, both daughters now in the corner. All of a sudden, her lost son comes back.
Or does he?
Or does he? Or does she find out he's a rebel and she has him put... I don't know. There's anywhere that this could go, and that does speak to where we think these books are going to go. Yeah. I think that enough breadcrumbs have been dropped about the world outside, the political situation... the king was introduced and all that. Like, I feel like the next book, I haven't read it all. You're only a little bit into the next book, right? A little bit farther. I think it's going to get more into the political and like the story behind and all the different relationships and drama between the different factions. And it's not just about learning how to ride in the college. I hope they show more of the war college. But now we know that Zayden's going to go off fighting, but she can't be separate from. So there's a lot of interesting areas where they're going to have to go with this. Anything where you think this story is going to go?
No, I can't because I feel like I've already read a little bit more of the book that I'm just like...
Am I on the right track?
I'm not going to tell you that. I will say I'm very interested to see how things go. I will say, I mean... I haven't read this far, but I don't know if they're going to go back to the college. I know you think that they will need to go back to the college. I don't really know how that would play because...
Well, if she doesn't go back, she's immediately just a she went AWOL. She's immediately a deserter if she doesn't go back.
But how are they gonna? Okay, but then
especially now that they were sent on that suicide mission,
right?
Basically, knowing because of Dane reading and knowing about the deliveries of that special steel that's supposed to kill the wyvern and the
Verin. Verin.
Veneer.
Something like that.
Which those people were ridiculous. The parasites that feed off the earth and get power that way. It's gonna be really...
They were once people though.
Yeah. Who they couldn't get magic from dragons, so they tore magic from life itself.
Right.
And then they created the wyvern, they created all that, which that was interesting when they killed the Veneer thing.
Oh, how it killed
it killed the like 20 wyvern at the same time.
That was really cool. I really liked it.
Then the griffins, the riders, turning out that they're not the big
bad
evil.
Guys. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Well, I would like to see is like why there's that separation between the two. When if they were fighting together, they'd be able to overpower the like evil things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is probably what I would want to see. Is like why 200 years ago was this war, you know, that split them.
Yeah. It is interesting as a historian who teaches. I am really curious to see if they do go into how the history was forgotten and then changed.
Well, because they talk about that. Like there's like that little snippet, I think from like her dad or something, where it's like,
all it takes is one generation to make a lie a truth or something.
Yeah,
like that.
It's like what was it? It was not to tell, or to change, or to not tell the truth. It makes another generation to live that truth on, and then from there, everyone thinks that believe. Yeah. So that was actually super interesting, but it also just made me think of like the world.
Yeah, as just history.
Yeah,
that's just
that was
the way
really
in
cool.
which. That's why history is ever changing, because you get new facts and new information to be able to interpret and see. Sometimes it goes too far because you're trying to reach and find something new, but it is interesting to see how narratives can change, and so I think she set that up really well.
I think so.
And the combat is cool. I wonder if she got help, because Rebecca Yarros, if I remember, her husband's in the military, and it would be interesting to see if she got military people to like help her in terms of thinking through some of the fights and battles, or if it was just like but yeah, very much looking forward to seeing where this goes. And I was pleasantly surprised with how good it was. I would give this book, for me, I would give it a solid like B plus grade, which for me that's like very well above average as a book. For me, that's where I would put it. Where would you rate this on like a letter scale?
C-. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, that's not the case.
I will say it's not as spicy as I thought it was going to be. I will say that. I just wanted to throw that tidbit out there.
It's not a Court of Thorns and Roses?
Oh, absolutely not. According to that book, this is like a young adult.
That's like tame.
Yeah.
Not reading that other one then.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
My brain. My eyes couldn't avert from the pages. I would give this a solid like A. Like a solid 95.
95, and I'm at like 88, 89, where it's like solid B plus.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah,
and I'm a harder critiquer than you are.
You are.
He never gets 100%.
Rarely. There's a few books out there, but rarely. But well, cool. Well, this was fun. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a feeling we would do this after I heard about this book and then bought it for you.
I know you did.
Yeah, it's been a while coming. Yeah,
6 months at least.
Something like that. Well, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you have a amazing time today, tomorrow. God bless. Go read a couple of good books, or listen to audiobooks, or whatever it is that you do to be creative and have fun. So thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
All right. See you later.